Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to part 4. We're now close to top of descent, about 100 to 80 nautical miles away from top of descent, which is the perfect time to start planning for your descent, especially when you think you may have to change your star, your arrival in any way, just so you got everything so you can plan ahead, check your transitions, check your constraints, whether it be speed constraints, altitude constraints, all that good stuff. So I would say 100 nautical miles should definitely be the target for you when planning for this, for the descent. Now, if you're not really going to go into the detail of planning a descent, obviously you can do this whenever you feel like doing it, but making sure you're prepared, especially in a plane that isn't fully automatic, especially with the VNAV and speed constraints and altitude constraints, it's a good idea to plan ahead and know what's coming up. Yeah. So first things first, we're in the cockpit now, as you guys can see. Obvious things, and first things we're going to check is again the econ memo. Make sure nothing has changed that could affect us in any way, and econ flow is perfectly fine for us. The next thing we want to verify is the we want to obtain any weather information or landing information that we might require, which is weather uplink stuff, weather data, etc., all that stuff that we need. So the way I'm going to do that is simply by going into my OFP. Now this is not the way you should do it. You should obviously get ATIS via either by ACARS, which is not simulated in this aircraft yet, or through the ATIS, like I said. So that's the way you should do it, but I'm going to do it via the OFP. And according to the OFP, our winds are 040 at 11 knots, 31 degrees Celsius, QNH 1013, and light thunderstorms actually. We'll see if that actually is still current. We'll check the METAR actually in a second, METAR. But what we can do now is we can set the altimeter for our destination in our standby stuff. We're lucky enough that our standby, or that our altimeters in our destination, or at our destination, is already 1013. We don't have to change this, but this is a good idea for you. If you don't want to forget, or if you're afraid you're gonna forget, or you don't want to look at your weather stuff again a second time or third time or whatever, how many times you need to look at it, just set it in your standby, and that is perfectly fine. Standby is obviously not the main one to use, which is why it's called standby, so you can change the altimeters as you wish on those two. So we can pre-select those in there. Once you've got that, set your landing elevation. Now I forgot to mention one thing in the pre-flight, which I may put in as a text, so maybe I did not forget, we'll see. If you use QFE, whether it's departure or arrival QFE, you want to set your landing elevation to 0 at all times. So if you're planning with QFE, which is basically a different standard of pressure, you want to set your landing elevation to 0 on both occasions. But we're not using QFE. We're going to switch, set our landing elevation to our field elevation, but you always want to have the landing elevation set lower than what it actually is. So let's say here, our landing elevation in Leipzig is 470, but because we can't put 470, I've explained this before, you don't want to set 500, you want to set lower. So you always want to round down. That's what I was looking for, the word I was looking for, round down. You always want to round down, not round up. So 400 feet elevation is what we're going to be setting for the landing elevation at our destination. Then we'll check the fuel, so make sure the fuel that we have on board is again sufficient, nothing that is out of what was planned, which is the case. So fuel looks fine. Next, the FMS stuff. So we're gonna verify our FMS information. So we're gonna keep this as is. If there's anything we wanted to manually enter, we could do that. But we're not going to do that for today, or at least for this arrival here. Landing config, you can either choose between config so flaps 20 or flaps 40, depending on what you prefer to use. If you guys want to have a comparison to an actual, to a modern Airbus, flaps 20 is pretty much flaps 3. Just take that into consideration. The approach speed looks like it's going to be 139, and wind correction we're going to set 5 knots. Alright, so it doesn't do that. MDA, you set either MDA or decision height. So if you're doing an ILS category 1, you would set your minimum decision altitude. If you're going to do it ILS category 2 or 3, you set your decision height. Today we're going to use the category 2, so we're going to set our decision height to 200 feet for the landing. If you're going to use NDA or decision height, you obviously check your charts and see what they say for your ILS, and you put them in respectively. If this would be able to be set manually, you would want to set your green dot speed again in your standby ASI right here. So that is around here, which says it is 205 knots, which is set here as well. That's what you would want to set it at. Everything else is not required. If you needed to do modifications in the flight plan, so your star, your anything else, do it here and verify that your constraints, your speed constraints and all, are set as needed. Set any nav aids that you need to set. You set your go around page if you need to set it. Go to take up an approach, go to your go around page, and here you can set some stuff, some information. So for your go around, you set your thrust reduction, your acceleration altitude as required. So again, if you're using noise abatement departure procedure 1, you set 1500 AGL and 3000 AGL in the acceleration, and then set these to 1500. So currently they're set to 1000. We're gonna set these to 1500. So 19er, 69er, and 19er, 69er here. Currently at this time you cannot change the engine out acceleration or thrust reduction altitudes for the go around. At least I can try, and you're not going to see a change. So don't think that's going to work at the moment. At least for 1.03 that doesn't work currently, but maybe in the future you can then edit those values. If again secondary flight plan would be required, so if you're expecting maybe a runway change, or in case of a engine out or whatever it may be, you can go ahead and start programming that in the secondary flight plan index as well. Once that is complete, the pilot flying will set the progress page, which is us, and the pilot not flying the flight plan page, and we do the approach the approach briefing. Once the approach briefing is complete, you can set FPA if you wanted to, so you can descend via FPA, or you can descend via different methods. So if ATC tells you you should descend via the star, which we will do in a second, or so our top descent here is at Robeck, as it looks like. Yeah, it looks like it's going to be at Robeck. You can just simply select your altitude to your next altitude that you're going to be descending to. So obviously you want to descend to an altitude that is a constraint. That is the best way to set it when if you're gonna descend via a star. So simply check any constraints that you may have, and the next constraint looks like it's gonna be 5,000 feet. So if that is the case, you could just simply select 5,000 feet, but in my case I would like to select 16,000 feet. So I like to set always half of what my actual altitude is currently at. And then in profile mode, you should descend automatically. This is where it's more like in Boeing instead of an Airbus, where it actually descends manually, automatically, instead of where you actually have to press the altitude button to actually descend. So for the approach briefing, I'm going to quickly check my charts for the approach and see if there are really any constraints that I need to worry about. So nope, the only constraint I need to worry about is MOOCs, which is 5,000, which we already checked. And that is, and our final approach fixed altitude will be 3,000. So yeah, there's really nothing else we need to do at this point until we start descending. Once we start descending, we'll do a few checks at 20,000 feet, we'll do a few flows at 10,000 feet, and then we'll start getting ready for the actual final approach. Alright guys, welcome back. As you guys can see, we're now about to pass 20,000 feet, and now honestly in cargo variant this is not a very important thing to do. But to keep it in the habit when you're flying passenger, because I can expect most people to fly passenger, the passenger variant, once it's out. At 20,000 feet is a good time to turn on the seatbelt sign. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. And of course, throughout the entire descent, your job is monitor your weather, your temperatures, in case of anti-ice requirements, or whatever else it may be. But the two main checks that I normally do is 20,000 feet, turn the seatbelt sign on. I also, at 20,000 feet, it is actually a procedure to also set your tilt to -1 degree. And then once we reach 10,000 feet, another degree lower, so it should be at around -2 degrees. We can also set the terrain on either side So the pilot monitoring can set terrain on his side at this point if you wanted to. And if we were passing 18,000 feet, or if we were cleared below 18,000 feet, or whatever the transition altitude is, so obviously in the States it'd be 18,000 feet, but if you're cleared past your transition altitude, you could already set your altimeter to the local QNH, and then do the approach checklist. So yeah, we'll go ahead and skip forward to 10,000 feet. Alright, we're now just about to pass 10,000 feet. You can already see that the profile mode has put us down to 250 knots. I'm going to go and get the speed brake out, and you can actually see the indication here as well as here to confirm that the speed brakes are still out. Obviously in the real plane you want to make sure that handle is in your right hand still, so you don't forget it. We are reaching 10,000 feet. We're also in turbulence, so we could have done this a little bit earlier if you wanted to, but there are two things here. So 10,000 feet, if you're flying the GE engines, which we are not at the moment, but if you were flying the GE engine variant, you would only set your engine or ignition mode selector to continuous relight if you're flying through heavy thunderstorms or severe turbulence, things like that, as we've discussed before takeoff. It's pretty much the same thing. But for Pratt & Whitney engines, you would set this to continuous relight no matter the situation. You would set it at 10,000 feet throughout the entire approach. Those are the different procedures again for GE and Pratt & Whitney. And obviously landing lights would be turned on at this point as well. And there's some rain now. So we're now in, so here you can see total air temperature is below 10 degrees. And we have visible moisture, so engine anti-ice is going to go ahead and come on. Okay, now it's saying descend to 205 or decrease to 205, most likely because our approach mode, our takeoff mode, or landing mode, sorry, is activated. You'll see, you don't see it now anymore because it's already activated. But if you do go to the approach page, you will see that there is an option to activate your approach mode, so to speak, kind of like in an A320 or equivalent approach phase. Basically, activate the approach phase. That will be available. Sometimes that activates automatically. If it does, you'll know that the speed, you'll know by the speed tape actually decreasing its speed to green dot speed, and once you see that, you'll know, okay, we're in an approach mode. So this weather is kind of interesting here. Ooh, thunderstorm right in front of us, or a lightning strike. So next thing we're going to set is our radar tilt to -2 degrees. That was also a 10,000 feet check. And we can do the approach checklist because we're cleared past our transition altitude, which means we have set our altimeter to our current altimeter, or current pressure. So signs set, briefing is confirmed, ECAM status is checked, altimeter is set, 1013 both, minimums is set, both, ignition is set on continuous relight, and landing elevation is set. We're now above 10 degrees total air temperature, so we can select anti-ice back to off, even with visible moisture. So we're going to clear ourselves down to 3,000 now, which is our final approach fixed altitude. And you can, like, again, another tip, if you press the heading, it will update to your current heading. So that's a little tip. And we're going to actually set our heading to 040, sorry. We're also going to set the landing system on at 10,000 feet. You should have done this as well. And we're going to select our ILS in here. So you select your ILS frequency, which is 10855, and our course of 082. Oops. And that's set. You should now see the localizer and glide slope active, which it is, and I'm going to go and arm the localizer, and you should see loc blue. I'm going to go and select slats 15 flaps 0 because we're at green dot speed, and then this airplane should decelerate to, I believe, S speed, maybe even an F speed. Yeah, it's going to go to S speed. Okay, past transition altitude, altimeters are set. And we're now on the localizer. So if you are planning on doing a non-precision approach, which I'm probably gonna make a separate tutorial for the supplementary procedures, you would use vertical speed or profile mode, but we'll cover that in more detail once we get to do it. So once we're at around 3,500, I'm gonna go and select flaps 15, slats 15. And I'm also going to set my MDA. Actually, no, we're not. We're using decision height, so we don't have to set MDA. If you would have set MDA in here, make sure to set MDA also in your standby via this knob, on your standby altimeter, or on your altimeter. Same thing with the co-pilot side. And so that is then checked. Though the glide slope is not yet alive, yeah, once the glide slope is alive, we're going to go and arm the land mode. We're at 3,500, so I'm going to select flaps 15. There we go. And our aircraft will now decelerate down. Wonder if, yeah, no, that's good. It should not respond. Here you guys can see our final approach altitude 3,000 Moxel. Our go around altitude is also 3,000, so we're going to keep that as, and we're going to update our heading to our current heading of 082. Now at F speed, which is fine, that's exactly what we want, and we're now going to level off at 3,000. As soon as we see the DME arc, or the arc, or the diamond go down, we're going to go in arm land mode. Okay, there it goes. Land activated, autopilot 2 coming on. And as soon as we capture the glide slope, we're going to go and put the gear down and arm the spoilers and set the auto brake to medium in our case. There we go. Gear's coming down, spoilers armed, and auto brake medium. Next thing, if you were already cleared for takeoff, whenever you're cleared for takeoff, you can go ahead and set your runway turn-off lights on and your nose lights to taxi. That's another thing you can do. And we're going to set our speed here to our final approach speed of 138, it looks like. Now, I'm not sure if V-approach is really V-approach or if it's actually VLS. That's one thing I'm not very certain about with this airplane. Next thing, if you were flying into a very busy airport, I actually did say TA on accident. You're supposed to set TARA. If you're landing in a very dense airport with a lot of landings, it is advised to set your transponder to TA only. Okay, flaps 3, so flaps 20 and flaps 40. So landing flaps are set, lights are set, well, the cabin report has been received, exterior lights are all good, we're good to go. So, landing checklist, landing gear is down, auto brake is set medium, anti-skid is checked, which is set norm on, slats is set, slats 30 and flaps 40, and spoilers are armed. Landing checklist is completed, and that is confirmed there. So I do think 138 is a bit low. I'm going to go and set 143. I like 143 a bit more. It's not as close to our stall speed there, or our minimum speed. So once we're ready and cleared to land, and once we have sufficient, or have done everything that we need to do, I'm going to go and turn off the autopilot, and we're going to fly. Sorry if I don't fly this well, especially in turbulence. I'm not used to flying this plane really, to be 100% honest. And to add to that, I'm not a big yoke flying guy, or yoke guy. So again, more apologies there. This plane, holy crap. This plane loves to respond to weather. So, low throttle coming off. I'm giving it a full left turn. This plane is very difficult to fly in landing, trust me. At least I think so. Okay. Reversers should be out. I can't really check the lights. Now they're out. Full reverse, decel, you can see in here, and spoilers are up. Knots, manual braking, and still the reversers. Okay, once we're clear of the runway, strobe lights to auto, runway turn-offs off, landing lights off. And now we would wait for taxi instructions. So let's say we've got our taxi instructions, so we're going to continue our taxi here. Let's see, where are we? Yep, alright, so we're going to cross here. So once we get our taxi clearance, go and set the spoilers to retracted. Flaps can come up. There we go. Brake fans would most likely come on, or not brake fans, but brake temperatures most likely will be at their hot position if they are, which they are right now. You would normally wait until you actually turn into the gate. That's when you would wait to turn them on. If, however, there is a different condition, if you're going to do a turnaround and the temperatures are at close to 500 degrees, then you can consider turning them on immediately. But we're not doing a turnaround, nor are they close to 500 degrees. So we're not going to worry about the brake fans until we start turning into our gate. Light directors we're going to go ahead and turn off. I'm going to select this back to nav. Set the constraints out, precision height off. Next, weather radar is set to test or off. So it looks like weather radar system actually does test. Looks like they've added that, which is cool. So we're actually going to turn it off. We're going to turn it off. No, sorry, we're going to set it to test and then turn it off by this off switch. And we're going to set our transponder as required. Chrono also, I'm going to go ahead and pause. And I'm going to set my transponder to standby because at this airport you don't use ground radar. Also, another thing we'll do, ignition set to off, and we're going to go and start the APU. Select the master switch on, wait a few seconds. Technically the APU page should show up. I don't think it's going to do that. So we're just going to start it now. Select on and make sure the Excel light illuminates. There it goes. The APU is now starting up. Also, if you had any anti-ice on at this point, make sure to turn that off at this point as well. No need for it anymore. Once all that is completed, we'll do the after takeoff, landing checklist, which is slats and flaps are retracted, transponder set as required, which is standby. Weather radar is off and spoilers disarmed. And APU is being started, and it is started. Okay, right before we turn into the gate, if our brakes are still hot, set the brake fans to on, nose light to off. You also want to verify that the acupressure here is in the green bands, which it is. And we're going to turn right here. and then we'll wait until we're parked. Start right here. Once you're stopped, parking brake, go and set. Apply the APU bleed. And once that is done, and the AC power is properly connected, we can verify that to the AC page right here, so we can see the APU gen is available. We can turn off the fuel levers to off. We'll stop the elapse time and set the exterior lights as necessary. So N1, we'll wait till 5% to turn off the beacon. There we go. Beacon light is off. We also want to verify that the slides disarm, which again, I mean, they are disarmed at the moment, but again, this system is not properly simulated just yet. So there's no slides to be checked at the moment, but hopefully that will be fixed in the future. Check the cabin pressurization. You obviously want to make sure that differential pressure is at 0, and if it is, seatbelt signs can come off. Now, if the chocks are in, which we're going to go ahead and request now, and your brake temperature and your brake fans are required, so the brakes are hot, it is advised that you turn off, or yes, turn off the parking brake. We'll go to ground ops, we'll go to ground services, connect the chocks as well as the external power, air stairs and loader. Turn off the parking brake because we now got the chocks, and so the brakes should cool faster now. Okay. Now we can turn off the fuel pumps except the left inner tank pump 2. So we'll keep this one on, and the rest of them can be turned off. Window heat can come off, but if you're doing a turnaround, you can keep them on, and the same thing for the probe heat. If you're doing a turnaround, keep them on, but if you're shutting down, turn them off. IRS, there is a way to check the IRS system, check whether they have drifted, and if they have, how much, and if the drift is actually within limits, within what it should be or what it's allowed to be. However, this is nothing really that is simulated properly, I believe, but you can see that the accuracy is still quite within limits, and so there's nothing we need to worry about. However, because we're completely securing the aircraft, we can turn off all the IRS systems for the flight, which we will do now. Check the brake temperature. And if the brake temperatures are below 100 degrees Celsius, we're going to go and clear that out. If the brake temperatures are below 100 degrees Celsius, which they will not be, yes, as you can see, you can then turn off the brake fan. Next thing, CRTs would be dimmed. Not completely turn off yet. We're just going to dim them. Okay, those are dimmed. Same thing with the FMS systems. Turn the weather radar to off completely, so the mode selector to off, and we can now do the parking checklist. The APU bleed is on currently. Engines are off. Differential pressure is 0. Lights and signs are set as required. Fuel pumps are off. Windows and probe heat are off. Parking brake and chocks are as required. So that is done with the parking checklist. If you want to completely shut down the aircraft, so secure the aircraft, there are a couple other things that we're going to go ahead and do. I'm going to go cover, of course, so you want to again make sure that the IRS are set to off. which they currently are. You want to set the crew oxygen to off, which is that one right there, which again, I believe the animations are off, or I think are incorrect, but that's just my speculation, because normally everything you push in is on, everything you push out is off by default in pretty much every Airbus plane. So I would be very surprised if this wouldn't be the case for the oxygen as well. So turn that off. So that's off. That's the crew oxygen. Exterior lights, all of them, go ahead and turn off. So strobe lights to off, navigation lights to off. It's done. We're gonna go and connect the external power, turn off the APU bleed. We're also gonna turn off econ flow, and we're gonna turn off the APU master. With that, because we're not running the APU anymore, we can also turn off the remaining fuel pump. Emergency exit lights to disarm. You should see the disarm light illuminate, and then the batteries can be all turned off. Once these are all off and you verify that everything is set and done as it should be, and you're ready to leave the airplane, which obviously wouldn't happen at this stage because you're still boarding and everything, but if you are ready, you could then completely disconnect the external power, turn it off, see the ATS system trip off, and that should be the end of the flight. So that was a complete tutorial, very in-depth, from startup, so from cold and dark all the way down to shutdown. I hope you really guys enjoyed this tutorial. I do understand that some of the procedures were a bit rushed, simply because it was very fast moving procedure. So for example, the takeoff, the landing, and then the after landing. I do apologize for that. So that is a complete, according to the FCOM, one-to-one how to do or how to use the normal procedures, or how to fly the aircraft through normal procedures from A to B, as detailed as possible. There might be another part, maybe part 5, where we'll go through supplementary procedures. Like I said, if there was an air starter unit available for this airplane, I would obviously go over how to start the engines at the ramp. Also do a cross-bleed engine start procedure, do a single engine taxi procedure before takeoff and after landing, as well as de-icing procedures if there was a de-icing truck or whatever the case may be. Supplementary procedures are things that I would cover in part 5 if that comes out soon. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed these tutorials. If you guys want to check out or support me in any way, feel free to join my Twitch channel, or join my Twitch chat. Feel free to say hello, and donations are there possible as well. But of course, that's nothing I'm looking for. I'm just looking for you guys' support by being there and saying hello. So anyways, thank you guys so much, and we'll see you in the next few videos, hopefully. Till then, peace.